All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to some of you, just depending on where you are. We are going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to give a minute here for some more people to come in. So we'll give like another minute here. But this is 5 ways content integration impacts learner engagement. So we'll just give a few more minutes and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Wonderful.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome from rainy Portland, Oregon.
And welcome from sunny San Diego.
Oh, I'm jealous. I am infinitely jealous, Kishor.
I didn't want to say it, but
yeah, just making me feel bad over here.
I know.
Nice. All right, we'll give a few more seconds here. All right, like I said, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to some of you, depending on where you are. This is OpenSesame and Learnsoft, 5 ways content integration impacts learner engagement. I am Crystal Osborne. I'll be kind of moderating in the back. So if you have any questions or if your sound goes out, please feel free to leave a chat, leave a question in the chat and we'll get you taken care of. But without further ado, I will turn it over to Kishor and Paige, who will be your hosts for the next 45 minutes.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to talk about the learner engagement, and mainly it's related to the integration between a learning management system and your content, and how that is going to help the engaging of the learner, because at the end of the day, it's all about the experience which these learners are going to have, and they can learn so that they can build their career, and in parallel, the organization development can achieve their aim of the talent acquisition and the growth in the organization. So my name is Kishor Amberkar. I'm the co-founder and currently the president and the CTO of Learnsoft. And we're excited to have Paige here from OpenSesame.
Yes, thanks, Kishor. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Paige Kracke, Senior Manager of the Curation team at OpenSesame. So we're really focused on aligning content to skill development targets, talent development needs. And so I think this conversation today is going to be a really great opportunity to talk about how the content is tied to the learning management system and how that integration can really create a powerful learning and cohesive learning experience. So really excited.
Wonderful. So just the agenda for today is we go through some of the slides, which explains in more detail that how does this engagement with the help of this integration can help the organization. Then we are going, it's an open discussion. We have the folks who can answer some questions on the chat. Towards the end, we'll open it for the Q&A. Okay.
All right. So to get us started, for those who may not be familiar with OpenSesame, I'll just do a really quick overview. OpenSesame is an online marketplace, and we offer thousands of off-the-shelf e-learning courses and resources to fuel your training programs, in addition to the power of curation in all forms that it may take. And for us, that curation piece is really key when it comes to content, because we know that with thousands and thousands of resources and learning courses, often comes this sense of analysis paralysis and this overwhelming aura for our learners. And so curation is really key, as well as integration with our learning management system partners like Learnsoft. So you'll see on this slide kind of the high level overview of all of the content areas that OpenSesame offers. You can drill down into any of these and go really, really deep. The catalog goes deep and wide in every top level category you see here. But again, that curation piece is key, and that integration piece is key, so that what you're delivering to your learners is a cohesive, guided experience that is really going to resonate no matter where they are and no matter what device they're accessing training on. So I'll pass it back over to you, Kishor.
Great. Wonderful. So we are Learnsoft. We are a learning company, and we provide the application for various organizations, which is a learning management system and a talent management system. But as you know, the box of the learning and the talent doesn't functionally fit in a square box. It is so much overlap. And what we consider ourselves as a tool which can help the employees or the end users or the learners to learn. And it becomes the key important part to retain the talent in the organization. So if you've seen from the OpenSesame slides and the Learnsoft slide, at the end of the day, what we are doing is, in the simplest term, is there is a lot of content, and I consider that as a well of knowledge which is sitting there. And I consider the learners like a crops. We have to pass that water to the crops. And those crops are sitting, some in the sunlight, some in the open, some in the shades. How much water they need. Each plant need a different set of waters, maybe only do it in the mornings or evenings. That's what we do here at Learnsoft. We are that engine which provides those content towards the end users so that they can learn and they can better perform in their job. We are helping a lot of organizations, whether they are healthcare organizations, whether they are local and state government. So we cover the entire part of the learning and the talent in the HCM space. That's what we do. And we were born from a learning company, and that's how we have learned that. So looking at my example that providing this water to the crops, the water is coming from the OpenSesame well, which has a lot of content with different type of branches, but it has to be targeted to a specific place of specific individuals in the organizations. Some are sitting in nursing, some are sitting in IT, some are sitting in accounting. Not everybody needs the same content. And even when it has been delivered is different. There are new hire orientation program, which happens only at the time of new hires, maybe at the time of rehires, or maybe there is a quarterly or a yearly performance review where I have to send certain content to them. It becomes a part of your talent growth so that as an individual, I can plan my career around this. So anyone can learn, but maybe not on the same day, or maybe not in the same way, because the training modes are different. Some are e-learning related things, some are webinar related things, some are checklist related things, some are ILTs, which we call as an instructor-led training base. But at the end of the day, it gives you the power as a blended learning. Okay. Now we are going to talk today mainly on the 5 points which can help employee or a learner their engagement better. The first and the most important point is to make it simple. We want one door entry. We do not want the learner to get confused on what content I am needing. If I'm in the specific position in the job, what type of content is needed to me? I don't know. Send that information to me rather than me finding that information. So we wanted to reduce the learning curve and make it simple. There are multiple advantages of doing that, not just at the learner level, but at the back-end level, because we don't want the admins to start moving things around, right? Getting the data from multiple sources, having the completion data going back and forth. There will be a lot of integration which can be creating problems. Let the connection, let the integration between an LMS and the content, that smart integration, let that take over and help the end user. So the end user just have to look at one thing, is give me my dashboard. What is coming? What is due? You see that hand stop sign? Something is due or past due. Tell me right away on the first screen. I don't have to go and find that out. Give me the certifications which are overdue. Give me the courses which are coming from this content. Let's give all those things on the first screen. And on the content side also, we want to keep it simple, right, Paige?
Absolutely. So I'd say this one is probably the most, this resonates the most strongly with me here at OpenSesame as far as our methodology when it comes to content and content curation, and also just the way that we think about our integrations with a learning management system like Learnsoft. We want the content access point to be as easy and as few barriers to entry as possible. The more clicks you have in between the point of delivery and the point of actually accessing content, the more people you're going to lose and the fewer people who are going to come back. Because today, a click, that's a barrier. That's a barrier. Like each click, each page, each tab, each window that opens is a barrier to entry. So the whole goal with OpenSesame is to curate on the front end, and then we deliver the content right into this space where the learners are already going, where they already know, so that there's zero, or, we minimize that friction, because that friction today, it's not going to fly when people are used to these, modern solutions in every other aspect of their lives. Learning cannot afford to fall behind in this way. So I think that the simplicity, as simple as you can be, that's going to be where you're going to see the most payoff in the long run when it comes to adoption, when it comes to engagement, and when it comes to retaining that engagement over time.
Absolutely. And, that's what we do here at Learnsoft, single click. Right from the email, you can launch certain courses. You don't even see your learning management system. A couple of our clients call our application as a Casper the Friendly Ghost. It's always hidden. But once it comes in the front, it will do its job, and it's very, very friendly. And that's what we wanted to do, because organization, 98% of your users are end users. They do not need the sophistication of a learning management system or even the content. I just want to complete my courses, but we wanted to make that exciting. We wanted to make that engaging so that they can learn more and they can apply whatever they have learned in the job. So that's one of the most first step, is to reduce your learning curve. And the integration between a content and an LMS, that connector, let that do all the hard work. But for the end user, it's one click.
Absolutely. I love that. Casper the Friendly Ghost. That's phenomenal.
It's all given from my clients. So that's how they look at our learning management system. Now, having that as your first step to reduce, that actually boosts the performance and the onboarding process. Most of the organizations which we dealt with, whether they are small regulatory organizations like the healthcare or even the government, there is a lot of onboarding process. And the onboarding process changes from department to department. If I'm in the clinical, it's a little different from what I'm sitting in a transportation for a government agency, right? And onboarding programs have shown to improve in the productivity. And that's how the individual, when they come to the organization, they learn, and they want the organization to tell them that they really care for their learning. Now, this integration between the LMS and the content can really help them to do this point number 2. This is one of our one-door entry page, where if it's a single sign-on, I don't have to remember 4 different usernames and password. I don't have to remember that I have to go to another site to launch my content. Let it be one door. And doesn't matter whether I am on a clinical staff or a non-clinical staff. Everybody in the organization go through this one door. And depending upon who I am, and we do integrate with the HCMs of the world, like the Workdays and the PeopleSofts of the world, so we know who you are. And depending upon who you are, and with help of our connector and the integration with the content with OpenSesame, we can now give you featured articles, featured courses, suggestions. Those can automatically be there on the page number 1. I don't have to go and find out. So this number 2 of making sure that we boost the learner's performance and fast becomes a key.
Absolutely. And I think for onboarding specifically, this is really critical, because it's the first experience that your learners are going to have with the system. It's their first time interacting with the content, with the platform, with the entire learning experience and ecosystem. So it's arguably the most critical to get right the first time around, to make sure you're showing folks things or content that is relevant to them where they are, especially when it comes to compliance. This is really important. I don't want to see a course on this on, a requirement from a state that I am not in and is not relevant to me if it's not necessary and it's not essential for me to successfully do my job and perform my duties. So I think that this is something where really adding that additional level of kind of human curation at the front end pays off in the long run, because if they're not happy, if people aren't satisfied on the first time, this is going to be the highest drop-off rate that you get when it comes to people being excited to come back. So I think that the onboarding is a really good time to put your best foot forward, curate some amazing content, relevant content, guided learning journeys, and of course those additional kind of tailored suggestions based on learner personas. So this is a really key piece as well.
Let's take that 1 and 2 and now take it to the number 3, right? We have to create this effective learning programs. We spoke about the onboarding, but there are multiple in the entire journey from me to hire, from my career growth. Every time, every quarter, every year, we need to provide some program for the career growth. It's as simple as when I do a driving license test, right? Does it make me a good driver? Probably not, until I drive every day. As I drive every day, my skills are getting polished so that eventually I become a wonderful driver, right? So in the same way, in the learning, just because we have a fantastic onboarding program doesn't satisfy during the entire life cycle of the employment. We have to provide those things, and the learning programs come in. And that actually adds in the satisfaction of a learner or an employee, so that I can stay in the organization for a lot more time, because the organization is spending some time on me and in my growth. And every bit and pieces, whether it's every quarter requirements of a certifications like American Heart Association does, or anything related to a organization specific certifications, those all can be combined using the content and gets delivered through a learning management system with a smart delivery mechanism, right? Whether it's a recurring base or a one-time base, whether it's targeted to certain job classes, job code, job positions, the timings, whether it's a 1 year recurring, 2 year recurring, 3 year recurring, those things can be done, so which can provide a continuous flow of educations to the employees. That's how we provide through because there are various ways of learning, whether they are active or a passive ways but what we wanted to do in the organization development, and at least provide some tools so the HR folks in the organization can bring a learning culture for every employee. What do you think, Paige? Even on the OpenSesame side, there are ways to curate the content which can be targeted on a specific time frames, right?
Absolutely. And I was actually going to bring up, this reminds me of, we have some publishers that we work with, content providers, who focus their training methodology around models. I'm sure some people are familiar with the 70-20-10 learning model, where 70% of your learning is happening actually on the job through experiential learning, and then 20% through interactions with others, and then 10% actually through that formal facilitated learning session or e-learning session. So there are actually content objects that employ this model. So there's a part of it that's that formal learning, and then there's additional resources to take that learning on the go, to apply that learning on the job in your role. So I think that there are certainly ways to leverage off-the-shelf resources, and then also you can kind of create this experience where we're applying learning. You can build that into the learning management system as well, into your kind of delivery and scheduled releases of content, into development programs. I've seen this done really effectively with leadership development programs, where we have the content, which is, hey, watch this course, go through the motions, and then a session or maybe a proctored, reviewed experience where this person may be applying that learning in their role. So it's really important, and it's certainly possible to leverage off-the-shelf training to do just this, or as part of this broader kind of process of getting folks to apply learning and then return for kind of a continual approach.
That's actually the point number 4, which is the collaboration part of it, right?
Yes.
The collaboration part of it comes from the content from the OpenSesame. The learning management system starts deploying that, but at the same time, the learner needs some helps, right? Whether I am integrated with Teams or Slack, where I can talk to the instructors, or I talk to the fellow attendees who are attending the same type of course. How do I bounce ideas? So that becomes the social side aspect of learning, right? We wanted to make sure that all of those things can come and combine and becomes a blended learning. So whether it's the e-learning portion of it, whether it's a checklist, what we call as a proctor-based learning, or maybe it's just an assessments and the evaluations which comes on top of that, all these systems have to talk to each other. That integration becomes the key success of an outcome of a project or a task. In this scenario, it can also be an outcome of my career as an employee, how I'm going step by step, how does outcomes, and that becomes a very important part about the collaboration. So here in Learnsoft, there are various learning modes which we have, whether they are instructor-led trainings, whether they are the webinar trainings, whether they are the e-learning side of the trainings, whether it's with event-based trainings, whether it's a checklist-based trainings. All those trainings can be attached what we call as a learning object, which can be deployed out to any part of your organization. Okay, so I'm showing some of the screenshots which has a different modes which can be attached to the learner's task, where they can do it, they can launch it, you can attach certain due dates associated to it. So this part of the number 4 becomes a key important aspect of an engagement, because it is not just one where you can bank on. It has to be a combination of a content. Learning management system will obviously deploy this using the connector, but there has to be Teams integration. There has to be a Slack integration. There has to be integration with your timekeeping system. And obviously one of the major one here, it's the HCM. It has to integrate with your HRIS system. So if I change certain job class and job positions, I can be moved, or the training can be targeted specifically to me.
Absolutely. And I think that this is where you can really get creative when it comes to this collaboration piece with the content that you're selecting and the reasoning and kind of the why behind those content selections. At OpenSesame, we've seen some really successful content rollouts where the content is specifically designed to spark conversation in a specific way. So maybe it's not your annual compliance course that you have to take. Maybe it's something a little bit more kind of real tied to current events, tied to current feelings. We have tons of really phenomenal mental health and well-being content that I think kind of facilitates this feeling of connection just inherently, and promotes this idea that, hey, we're starting a conversation. Maybe this is a micro-learning course that we're watching in preparation for an actual in-person conversation. Maybe we're rolling out a book summary course that's kind of sparking ideas, and that's the purpose, rather than, you know, the compliance, the things that we must do. When you combine those things effectively, it really creates an experience that people want to talk about and that people do talk about. Because I've also seen on the flip side some attempts at this, but when you're trying to get people to talk about their ethics and code of conduct course, it can be a little bit trickier to pull that really fruitful discussion out of the woodwork. So I think that the content curation here can be a major component when it comes to trying to gather or facilitate these conversations and these authentic conversations between your learners.
So we did all the homework, we did all the bases are covered, but the 5th one, which is the most important part, that we found the content, we curated the content for our audience, we made sure that it is being uploaded into the learning management system, gets deployed to a specific zone, specific target, specific times. We did all that. We did also the collaborations with the other part of the enterprise stack, whether it's Teams or Slacks or it's CMs. We did all those things so the learners are all engaged. It's easy, one-click base. Now we want to find out the results. How did it win? Right? I just deployed this learning path for my organization. How did it really help? Are we doing some type of management impact module? Are we doing some Kirkpatrick level of evaluation so that whatever we learn, is it really helping at my job? Let's find that out. And that is the point number 5. Let's now measure it. Let's measure what this learning and development programs which we created, was it really helpful? And that becomes the key part of a learning management system and the connector which we have with the content, because we do receive the data from the content. And doesn't matter what type of technology we are talking about, right? Whether it's a SCOM or AICC or whether it's a tin can, let the connector worry about all those fancy words. I want results. I want to find out that really it helped or not. So that the reason why I want to find that out is so that I can take some actions. Maybe it didn't work correctly. Maybe I need to tweak a little bit. Maybe I need to add some extra content. Or maybe there was a content overload. Let me minimize it a little bit, depending upon my audience, obviously, because some people maybe in the IT will take the content in a different way. The clinical staff might take it in a different way. Let me customize or let me adapt this entire program, but I can't just make that decision without actually seeing what happened. And that is our number 4. So at Learnsoft here, we can provide number of reports, whether they're custom reports, whether they are scheduled reports, or maybe there are fancy dashboards, right? Which can give me the information, and not just at the user level here. Now we are talking about an admin or a manager level, so that we can make people accountable. We can make sure that the manager who there are 10 people reports to him, he is on the top saying that who did complete, what was the interaction, what can we make specific evaluations on that. So here at Learnsoft, reporting is one of the biggest plus, or we shine in that more, because that's where it gives the leaders enough information to change. And it's an iteration because it's continuously changing. With this COVID world, the world has totally changed. So we have to adapt those things, and Learnsoft helps in that.
Absolutely. I mean, can you imagine some of the differences in the content that we're looking for today compared to 18, 24 months ago? There's so much new content. There's so many new global factors at play that are impacting the way that we are recommending content, the way that we're delivering content to this new remote hybrid post-pandemic workplace that is really, it's just, if you're not adapting and iterating constantly, then you're falling behind. So this is a look at OpenSesame's insights. Again, these are all going to flow into the Learnsoft system as well, but ours are available and they really focus on the content piece. So things like most utilized courses, least utilized courses, highest and lowest rated courses, average completion percentages, average number of enrolled courses, and then your total enrollments versus completions. So lots of different information that you can use, and we'll typically use this to kind of identify where one specific course or a set of courses might not be hitting the mark and what is working, what stylistic elements of content are resonating with my learners, what modalities, what delivery platforms are, or delivery kind of systems are working when it comes to content. And we can do that and look at this information really as much as our learning administrative partners are willing to, because I think it's super important to continually look at this data and use it to adapt your program over time.
Wonderful. So we talked about all those 5 points, right? So what is going to help here? Because ideally there is no perfect solution, right? It has to be changed. Every organization have its own culture, own training, deployment. Every position, whether I always talk about the healthcare side or the non-healthcare side of it, but it is different. The training which is deployed for the transportation agency is not the same what healthcare does, right? Even the modes are different, the way it is being adapted is different or consumed is different. But we wanted to make sure that this integration, which is a happy marriage between the content and the LMS, is so seamless, and let it do all the big work behind the scene, so that the end user doesn't feel that. It's very simple for them. It's a thoughtful approach, to actually plan this training initiative, remove all the barriers which we have, having one aim to motivate the learner so that they can learn fast. Their tools are right in front of them, right? They can engage between the other attendees or the instructors or anyone in the organization. So if there is any help needed, it's right there in the platform, right? So we wanted to focus learner to just learn, and let the systems like Learnsoft or like OpenSesame integrate it, so the engagement becomes powerful. So these are some of the resources which we have. There's a lot more on our website, Learnsoft website and OpenSesame website, which can be a resources. There's an entire list of OpenSesame courses, which you can just look at those from the website. Again, thank you for joining us, and we are open for the questions and answers.
Excellent. And it looks like we have one question on the Q&A. Is there a technical requirement for LMS to connect for the LMS to content integration?
That's the beauty about what we do here at Learnsoft. Obviously, in the e-learning space, there is a SCOM 1.1, SCOM 1.2, 2004. Then we have AICC. Now, a couple of years ago, the tin can came up, the XAPI came up. Historically, there was LTI, which is typically used for the machinery type of learning, where it sends the data like a mannequins and all those things. The technology doesn't matter. We have done custom integrations also as a Learnsoft, but mostly with OpenSesame, there are all standard SCOM, AICC, or XAPI based integration, so it becomes a seamless for us. So that's the technology behind, but the technology doesn't matter. As we said, we can do a custom integration also.
Excellent. And one other question: can any third-party content be uploaded? Is there an option for bulk upload? And what about content updates?
Wonderful. That's a very key question, because it becomes very important that all the fresh content is always in front of the end user. And at the same time, we have to make sure that there is a version controlling, because if I took a sexual harassment course 2 years ago and there was a slide number 5 in that, I want to make sure for audit purposes that it is still there. So to answer this question is absolutely. There is you can upload any type of content into the learning management system. The SCOM and AICC will be better, or the tin can, so that it becomes trackable. There isn't bulk SCOM uploader, but the beauty about the integration with OpenSesame is we talk API to API. That means there is a deeper API integration. If there is any change in the content, Learnsoft APIs can talk to the APIs from OpenSesame, and in the back end, all those parts are done. So when the end user clicks on that launch button, he will get a refresher course. So that is all in place.
Excellent. And let's see, a couple more questions coming in the Q&A. Okay, how and when would access begin of OpenSesame with the current company using Learnsoft? So that would be a question. If you wouldn't mind, I think that our contact info is on this slide. We can definitely chat more about setting up the integration. It is a separate, we're integrated together, but OpenSesame is a separate product, the content side. So that would be something that we need to set up and basically grant access to that the catalog of content. And then one last question: what types of reporting is available?
There are multiple types of reports coming through the Learnsoft LMS. Some of the reports, like e-learning reports, are actually fed from content. OpenSesame provides that, whether it's a SCORM-related CMI calls, or whether it's an AICC-related calls, or any interaction-related calls for the assessment which comes from the SCORM and AICC. Those are the standard reports which are e-learning based report. But there are a bunch of reports which are just the learning management system reports, like the completion reports, the delinquent reports, the roster reports. If there are any checklist related reports or competency based related reports, those are all coming through the Learnsoft LMS. So we are getting the data from OpenSesame on the real time, which will be fed back to the organizations. And the reports are broken down into various groups, and users maybe have to just see their transcripts and the final scores, but the manager needs to need a little bit more. But the admins, as Paige was just mentioning, that the admins needs those reports, that which course is heavily used, which courses was not that popular. Even in the assessment which are sitting inside the SCORM, maybe the question number 5, not everybody answered it correctly. Maybe there's a problem in that number 5. Let's modify that question number 5. So those things for the admins or the course creators becomes very, very important. And those are all be delivered through the Learnsoft LMS.
Excellent. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A, but if there's anything else, of course, for me, feel free to connect on LinkedIn or reach out there. And I believe we'll be sharing the slides and this recording after the presentation. Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong. But thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today.
Same here. You can find me on LinkedIn. We'll provide you the contact information. We're happy to chat more in detail about this integration and other functionalities and other areas of engagement, mainly the learners' engagement. It was a pleasure spending some time, and thank you for joining us.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Kishor and Paige, for your time. We greatly appreciate it. As they said, yes, you can find more information on our integrations link that I just put in the chat for you all. If you all have any questions, please feel free to reach out to OpenSesame or Learnsoft. We are more than happy to answer anything. And yes, the slides will be shared with you all in the recording. So hope to see you all in the next webinar. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone, take care.
Mm-hmm.